So, you want to make a product, something you can sell, so you can make some money, your life will be so swell. Make up a reaction.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, it's been a long week.
You hire some chemists and build a factory.
Yeah. Actually, watching this test hints might be the longest continuous period of time my students have seen me in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah, you've been on some field trips there,
Yeah.
haven't you?
Yeah.
Okay, we're at the chapter 11 test hints for regular chemistry, and this is all about, what are we doing? Balance?
Yeah, balancing equations. Balancing equations, equation types,
Right.
and
Types of reactions.
all that stuff.
What happens to those atoms when they're not breaking the law?
breaking the law, breaking the law.
I know that song could have been spiced up a lot.
Yeah.
Uh,
The law of
So we're-
conservation of matter.
Conservation of matter, conservation of
Mass.
atoms, conservation of mass.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so test hint number 1 says define, identify what chemical reactions are. They're just a record of what went
What's
into
going
a
on.
reaction
Right.
and what's coming out. So it won't be worded like that, but if you get that concept, you'll be good.
Right.
Number 2.
And that ties right into number 2. What does a chemical equation show? A chemical equation is very different than a chemical reaction. A chemical equation actually shows the relative amounts of reactants that are combining together and products that are being produced.
Like
It's-
a recipe.
Exactly, like a cake recipe. Yeah.
Sweet, because this test will be a piece of cake, so. Alright, number 3, define skeleton equation. Well, we happen to have several examples, kind of planning ahead here for the different reaction types.
Right.
These are, I think, all skeleton equations, and there's something that's missing.
There's only one that's not.
Okay,
There's only one that's not.
okay.
And a dedicated, motivated student will pick that out. They'll press pause
Mm-hmm.
and they'll find the one that's not.
Which one isn't? So what these are missing, even though all the formulas are written correctly, because I'm sure that by the time you watch this video, you will have heard us tell you 5 bazillion times, write your formulas correctly, make sure you have that right. But they don't have the correct coefficients. In fact, they don't have any coefficients yet, because we haven't balanced. These are all examples of skeleton equations. Correct formulas, not balanced yet. Number 4
Number 4, define a catalyst.
is the don't farmers have that?
Yes, farmers have that.
The record of all
Yes,
their cows?
that's how they know which cow has come in to get milked and
Oh,
not.
Big cattle.
It's a catalyst.
Okay,
Yes.
but in chemistry, we've used a catalyst in the potassium chloride
Sure.
decomposition.
It's a part of a chemical reaction that's not actually changed itself. All it does is speed up the process.
Right, and sometimes you'll see the catalyst mentioned above the arrow. Like if we had the decomposition of potassium chloride up here, we might write MnO2 above the arrow, just as this other condition that says, hey, if we put some of this stuff in, the
Exactly.
whole process goes faster. And there is a whole lot more to catalyst than that, but we're still at the introductory level. So.
Yes.
Number 5, identify the correct skeleton equation given a word description of the atom. So you have to read, and you have to read words and look for the names of the reactants and the names of the products, and write the correct chemical formulas for those. And you know what we would do?
We would include probably one of the magic 7.
Yes.
That's a big stumper, because
Right.
if we say that nitrogen is a reactant, then we're talking about the element nitrogen, and you need to be able to identify that as
N2.
N2.
We also might put the reaction backwards as one of the choices.
Oh, yes.
So
Yeah,
you have to see
right.
what and what forms what, and make sure that you're understanding where the yield sign is in the reaction and what's
Which
coming
one-
together.
Yeah, which
what's
ones are
being
the
produced,
products, which ones are the reactants.
and so
Right.
on. Okay.
Number 6, write a balanced equation from a word equation. We're going to give you a sentence that includes the written out names of the reactants and products, and then we're going to ask you to identify from a list which one's balanced.
Right.
which one correctly balances this reaction
Right.
you
And,
just described.
sorry, we're gonna have several where you're just picking out coefficients,
Right.
and then a few of them where we're just gonna focus in on one of the reactants or products and ask you to tell what the coefficient would that be on that substance. So you need to know how to write the balanced equation correctly and then zero in on the particular substance we're asking. And you'll see that several different times on this test, either what set of coefficients balances this equation, or if you balance this equation, the coefficient in front of nitrogen in your example would be what? Okay, number 7.
Is that your
Yeah,
turn?
I guess it's my turn. Balance a skeleton equation. Okay, so you will be given a skeleton equation, again, like some of these, and you're going to count your atoms back and forth. Say on this first one, if we have sodium plus chlorine gas, which notice is diatomic, making sodium chloride, we made sure to write all those chemical formulas correctly. And because of that diatomic molecule, or the fact that there's a subscript on some species there, we have to put a coefficient of 2 here, and a coefficient of 2 in front of the Na. So it's really just counting back and forth at that point. And, you know, in the beginning questions of the test here, I don't think they're going to be too challenging,
They
but
really are pretty straightforward
you need to be able to count.
at the beginning.
Mhm.
Number 8, identify what is equal on both sides of the chemical equation. This goes back to that very first inquiry activity that you did.
Mhm.
Is the number of molecules the same on one side and the other?
Sometimes.
Here's that's 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. What about this? Here's 1 molecule and 2 molecules. What's the same? When a chemical equation is balanced, what's the same on each side of the reaction? I'm not going to tell.
I'm not going to tell them.
Okay. Number
They hate it when we tell
All
them.
right. Number 9
Number 9.
is another balanced skeletal equation. And
Okay.
there it is.
Yeah, and this is one where you will have the skeleton equation written out for you, so the formulas will be correct, and you're going to pick the set of coefficients that balances it. So you're going to do your tally back and forth and count, and you should be able to keep track of the atoms. Number 10.
Number 10, balance an equation given the word description of the reaction. This is starting to get a little redundant.
Right.
So we're going to write you a sentence that has the names of the materials that are involved in those reactions, or that particular reaction. And
Right.
we're either going to give you a set of coefficients, or
some equations that aren't balanced, and like with the actual chemical formulas written out. Let me say there's something to watch for on this one, and that's to make sure that in your answer choices, the correct subscripts are on each chemical compound. That would be something you want to take a look at and read all your answer choices. Don't just rush through that one.